Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Goldberg. I'm our executive director of the Veale Institute for Entrepreneurship here at Case Western Reserve University. Also, I'm a professor at the Weatherhead School of Management. It is wonderful to be able to welcome back to campus, at least virtually today, Eliot Bourk. And our Veale sessions are always moderated by students, and I'm really thrilled that Ashley Saw is our student moderator. Ashley is one of our new Veale Snyder Fellows program, which is a brand new pilot program that we've launched for entrepreneurially interested students like Ashley. So she'll be going through a series of courses and including a trip out to San Francisco this fall and a trip to Barcelona in the spring. So we're really thrilled to have Ashley as part of that program and moderating today. For those that are on Zoom, we love these to be interactive. So please, after Ashley kind of kicks off the session with her questions, let her know either by raising your hand or putting a note in the chat if you have a question for her. And if you're on LinkedIn Live, just put in a comment what your question is, and Stacy and I will be monitoring so we can feed those questions in to Ashley. So Eliot, thanks for taking the time, and Ashley, let me turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And again, I'm so excited to be a part of the Veale Snyder Fellowship Program, and I'm really excited to be moderating today. So I think I'll just jump right into it. So Mr. Bourk, throughout your whole career has been in the biotechnology industry. And one of my first questions is, what led to your initial interest in biotechnology? And maybe how has that interest guided you throughout your career?
Sure, thanks, Ashley. So my interest in biotechnology, I think, started really early. I think at around 12 or 13, I decided I want to run a biotech company when I grow up. I don't think I really knew what that meant at the time, but I grew up in San Diego, where there's a very vibrant biotech community. And I think at the time, seeing that industry and how it was evolving, seeing honestly some of the media coverage of it, the impact that it was having on people's lives, and just how cool the science was. That people had been able to figure out how to make the science work and really make new breakthroughs to improve health and life for people. It just really inspired me. And I think San Diego was also a big center for telecom, but that was my dad's thing. So this, it gave me a chance to do something cutting edge in the technology space, but to have my own piece of that and something that was different. And there was one experience, I think, in particular I'd point back to. It was an outreach program from the University of California, San Diego. And I think about age 12, it was just one morning on a weekend. A bunch of kids go to the university, you sit in there, you wait for this program to start. And then they just threw so much interesting technology and hands-on opportunities at us. We got to streak bacteria plates, see how bioluminescence worked, actually put our hands on real lab equipment and run some experiments in that morning there. And that just struck me. So from there, I think part of entrepreneurship to me is forging a new path to follow your vision where a path doesn't exist already. And part of that is just throwing yourself into learning new things. So I took that time to really follow that passion, take as much science as I could consume, buying books, reading books, going to biology camp, petitioning the school to take AP classes earlier, spending summers taking organic chemistry, just whatever I could to get my brain soaking up more of that, the science and the technology. And I think that vision is really what led me to Case. The academic opportunity, the intimate community, and the combination of really highly ranked medical schools and research center on the one hand, and business school and the applications of those technologies. So coming into to Case, I was inspired by the coursework, the biochemistry, structural biology, neuropharmacology, just amazing professors, amazing courses that I think continued to foster those interests. And even beyond the subject matter, finding some mentors who encouraged me, believed in me, took a chance on me, think was what really kept me going in that direction. So I had applied for an industry co-op locally in Cleveland through the co-op office. I was really interested in getting out, seeing how things worked in industry, in the biotech setting. And I was so excited, but I'd only filled out this one application and I didn't get the job. So if I couldn't do that, what could I do to keep moving in this space? And Mary Rose Tishar, who was in the co-op office at the time, really sat down with me and became an advocate and a sparring partner for me. And together, really with her guidance, we built a pathway using the industry co-op framework on campus to allow me to go and do research full-time in the medical school in a lab in radiation oncology. So we had to work with the college, with the medical school, with an on-campus temp agency, with the professor, get all these things oriented that weren't there already for an atypical co-op. And it gave me the chance then to take that time off from coursework, to still get credit, to get paid, to work in the lab full time, even if it's basically minimum wage that I'm there at. But it gave me that opportunity to dive deeper, to follow interests beyond the coursework that was available, to try to go somewhere new. And I think in that, I'm really grateful to two of the mentors that I had in research at that time, to Dr. David Boothman, who sadly is no longer with us. He really took the chance on me that first time, funded my co-op experience in the lab, and gave me a chance to do something that I was so keen to do and really shaped my future. And then Dr. Alan Levine and David Spencer in his lab, who toward the end of my time at Case took me under their wing, taught me an incredible amount about immunology and preclinical research, and really, in the end, encouraged and supported me in moving back to San Diego for my PhD at UCSD. So I guess the last part I'd say there is with Mary Rose, I felt such a strong, supported relationship, but she had also laid a charge on me at that time that I don't think I really fully appreciated. And part of inspiring and believing someone is helping them take aim at goals that may be a bit loftier than they would set for themselves on their own. And on many occasions during my time at Case and even afterwards, as we stayed in touch, she would say to me, I just know that one day you're going to cure cancer. And every time I'd hear it, I would have a little bit of a sense of doubt and guilt of thinking, I can't possibly do that. I can't do that by myself. And to think that I could even take part in some kind of breakthrough like that was hard to imagine. But over time, I think that really evolved into a sense of mission. And I'm not going to do it by myself. Maybe I'll never do it. But that is I think what's carried me throughout my career, that inspiration through research in grad school, through consulting, and now in the biotech industry, to try to develop new therapies to cure cancer.
Yeah, I think it's really like your whole story is just so amazing. And, I can definitely say that even still at Case, there's still such a supportive community, even not just amongst the faculty, but amongst the students themselves. So it's great to see that, it just even just your passion and dedication, you were able to find a good community for that. One thing I wanted to ask you about was your experience as a biotechnology analyst. I believe last time in our discussion, you mentioned that that was sort of a transition for you within the biotechnology industry, the type of work that you did. So maybe you could talk more about that, like either the skills you've learned or the field industry and how that helped you make a transition from maybe research and learning more about the science more to management.
Absolutely. So I think coming out of the PhD program, I had a really solid sense of the science and the underlying basis of a lot of human disease. Understanding the mechanism of action of therapies, being able to propose new modifications to those to further improve or optimize them. But I think what you pointed out, Ashley, is missing that connection to the industrial applications and to the management in that field. And for me, I saw this gap between academic science and leadership in the biotech industry. I had found during the PhD that I was completely fascinated by the intellectual side of the science, understanding how biology works. But when it came to doing the lab work, it wasn't my passion so much, and honestly, it wasn't. I wasn't that great at it. It wasn't the best use of my skills, I felt like. So making that transition, I think, started with taking some coursework in intellectual property at night, just getting a sense of how the patent system worked, and had a serendipitous opportunity there to start consulting during graduate school, doing intellectual property research, analyzing biotech patents, scientific literature, and in that time of my life, I probably had the chance to skim or scan north of 10,000 patent applications, articles, patents. Learned about biotech sequence searching and how to dissect the ways of finding the intellectual property relating to an innovation. And in that time, just got exposure to a whole wave of new technologies for therapeutics, for diagnostics that were going to come of age in the 20-teens. So when you first start seeing those things coming through on the forefront of patent applications, that's an indicator of what's coming 5, 7, 10 years down the line. So it was really almost a preview of what the next decade was going to look like from a technology standpoint. And coming from that, the limitation I found for myself was I was doing this research, I was doing the analysis, but I didn't have a chance to give my own opinion. If I'm supporting a law firm or the intellectual property counsel at a biotech company, they're the attorneys, they are forming the opinions. I'm really just providing the best information I can to help them make those decisions. And I wanted to get a chance to weigh in, to give those opinions. So I transitioned from the intellectual property research side to life sciences competitive strategy consultancy. And there, I think really from day one, had the chance to jump into trying to solve problems with clients. It was a small office at the time, a firm called Veale. They were just starting up the New York City office of the consultancy. When I joined, it was about 5 people in a shared office space, and we were just desk to desk doing everything we could to solve client problems, to grow the business. And I think I learned a ton in that time, both on the industry side and understanding better the drug development process, the commercialization process, how to picture and carve up a competitive landscape to build a forecast. All of those pieces that I never had a chance to learn when I was on the academic side, focused strictly on the science, but also had a number of entrepreneurial lessons during that time. And being with a very small, fast-growing firm, you have to move quickly. And so we were constantly growing the team, looking for new space as we grew. I remember coming in on the weekend to build furniture because we'd have a new person starting on Monday and we didn't have a desk for them yet. And if you aren't going to do it, there's nowhere for them to sit. So those just roll up your sleeves, get it done, and face that next challenge with your head up lessons, I think were really critical for me in starting to bridge that divide that I had felt from the pure science to industry.
I think what's really interesting about your story is that, like, throughout your whole time, you're always looking at, what, where your interest lies, where is your passion. And I think in many ways, that's not the story for like a lot of people. A lot of people do have like, a goal in mind, but they're kind of following like a prescribed path on how to get to the end goal. So I guess one of the questions I had was, could you talk about how maybe like as your goal, like from as a 12-year-old to lead a biotechnology company, how you kind of like kept going forward into, pursuing new opportunities, you know,
Yeah.
how that encouraged you to make those like uncomfortable jumps where you didn't necessarily know what's happening next, but you knew you were getting a little bit closer towards your goal.
Sure. I think this is something that I've grappled with constantly throughout my career. I mean, I think I've always felt a little bit that it was hard for me to fit the mold of a traditional pathway. The kinds of roles that I thought I was going to be interested in the pharmaceutical industry, for example, in commercial, the typical path there would be to become a sales rep, to then become a product manager, a marketing director, a commercial leader, and there was room for variation, but it was a fairly well-charted path. And a lot of the people that I sought advice from really guided me. You need to take at least some of these steps during this process because this is what you need to build that foundation to where you need to go. On the business development side, a typical path going into investment banking, getting a top MBA, then working your way up through business development transaction teams. Again, it wasn't the path that I had started down. And I think what I had to think to myself when taking this leap, there were three things I think I had to ask myself each time. One would be, do you follow where your passion leads? Or do you try to follow the path that somebody else has taken to get where they went to? And for me, the world is changing constantly. There are new opportunities that are going to pop up that you've never seen before. The path may change. And I think you really have to reflect on being true to yourself and what's going to inspire you. And I think in each of those cases for me, I found, with a few exceptions, I needed to follow my passion, to have that inspiration to keep me going, to work as hard as I could to solve that next problem with the teams that I was working with. So that first piece of having the courage or the foolishness at times to go a different way, just trusting that with the options that you have and the intuition and the path that you can lay, that you'll get to where you're meant to be in the future, even if it's not what you had envisioned in the first place. I think another one for me was the comfort with new challenges. And if you're moving into a different level of responsibility or you're moving into a totally different role, when that opportunity comes up, do you seize it to take on that new challenge, to take on that higher level of responsibility, even though you're not 100% ready for it? Or do you sit back and wait and try to get more comfortable at it and until you realize maybe that you've been overqualified for that for a while and you may have missed out on some life-changing opportunities. So with that, I felt that you can't grow if you don't stretch yourself. If you are totally comfortable doing a job, you're probably not challenging yourself enough. And you're missing out both on opportunities for growth for yourself and also opportunities to make a difference for organizations or for stakeholders who need someone now to fill that role to move the field forward. And I guess the last piece is the confidence that you have in your leaders, in your manager. Do you believe in that person, in those people, to challenge you, to support you? And I think in many cases, that's absolute most important part. I would never have gotten to where I am now without the support that I had at many stages along the way. During the PhD program, a postdoc named Ping Zhu. At Dialis, Claudio D'Ambrosio taking a chance on me, lifting me up, constantly throwing those challenges a little bit above where I was comfortable doing, and supporting me to meet those. And now for the last 6 years, Jennifer Chow, who's our CEO at Chimeric, I think it's essential to find the people who believe in you for the right reasons, who can work together with you to make each other successful, and really let them help you go beyond what you think you're capable of. So at all those stages, I think these are those questions that I had to ask myself. And lastly, I think I always had to see, what are the options? If you take this next step, what does that do 2 or 3 moves down the line to your strategic options? Are you building toward a direction with some momentum? Are you closing off paths that you otherwise might have been able to take? And then on the merits of that, kind of the rational view and the intuitive passion view, making that right decision that's just true for yourself, and moving forward in the best way you can to seize that next opportunity.
And we actually just opened the floor. So I think Nazar was the first person to raise his hand. So I'll let him go ahead and ask a question.
Yeah, hi, I'm Nazar, and I'm a recent graduate here from Case. And I was kind of wondering, you mentioned a lot about taking paths and kind of looking forward. Have you ever thought back to the paths and options you've taken in the past and think maybe that wasn't the best idea? Or do you look at it differently and think every single experience I've had has led me to where I am now, and you kind of like maybe don't regret some things?
It's a tough one. I'd say it's a bit of both, but for me, more toward the latter. I think I really do believe that all the experiences behind you get you to where you are. And I don't think I have regrets about the steps that I've taken. That doesn't mean I haven't made mistakes or done things that could have been done differently or could have been done better. And I think with those, what's critical is not losing that opportunity for learning, not being blind to what lessons you can take away from it. But to me, if you're dwelling on the past and what you could have done for longer than just assessing that learning and tucking that away for the next time, you're not focused on the future. So maybe it's a bit of willful blindness to what could have been, but I think just the sense that this has been the path that that fate has thrown to you, and that you've charted out with the opportunities you're given. That's enough for me. And taking that energy and applying it to the next stage instead of the past, I think is how I stay focused on the future.
Mr. Goldberg has a question as well.
Great, thanks, Ashley. Thanks, Eliot, for joining us today. It's a really great conversation. It's so interesting to hear you reflect back on your Case Western Reserve days and some of those early opportunities and how it shaped you. I want to talk a little bit about access to capital. I mean, your journey as a scientist and as a researcher, I assume was paved, at least initially, through government support and grants and all the work that, whether it's researchers here or in other places, do on the backs of support through federal agencies. And it's so interesting to kind of see, we were just in a conversation on campus this morning talking about commercialization and translation, and how all this work that goes into the science and the long journey to actually take that from the lab to a commercial entity. Talk a little bit about your own experience with startups and sort of bringing outside private capital after government money, and kind of the importance of having sort of those two funding sources there, a lot of government dollars early on, and then private capital kind of to follow it to eventually help, bring technology to market.
Sure. Thanks, Mike. So I'll preface it with saying, I haven't started a number of companies from the ground up and had to raise the seed capital by myself, but from the experience that I have had, I think the federal research dollars, even the private research money, the foundations, the open-endedness of that funding, I think, is really critical for exploration in the field. If we're only focused on the practical breakthroughs that are within the horizon that we can see right now, it really limits our options to make a quantum leap, to make that real breakthrough. And in many cases, unless you have the dream team and the beginnings of those science already behind you, you're not going to get significant private capital or public capital to fund truly exploratory activities. You need to have an application, you need to have a vision, you need to be able to express the differentiation of your approach and how that's going to solve a problem better, faster, cheaper than somebody else is currently doing right now. So having that open-ended source of funding to make the bigger breakthroughs and to honestly to give opportunities for failures or dead ends of research, but still have the ability to keep moving forward is a critical sustenance for the industry. On getting private capital or public capital coming in to bring those innovations through to further development and commercialization. From my perspective, there have been a couple of key sources or determinants to make that work. One is being able to identify and build the story around a truly valuable and value creating piece of technology or an application of technology. So finding that science, finding that device that's really has legs, has something that can take it through, but hasn't been fully appreciated yet by the field. Maybe it's a paper that's under review. It's something that hasn't been fully unleashed, and you have that moment where you can come in and build that relationship and put the package together. Is key. And another is through your network, finding those individuals who have successfully raised money before, and either working with them as mentors who can help guide you through that process, who've succeeded and failed and can help you chart out that course, or even those who can partner with you, who know the capital markets well, who have the connections with investors, who can partner with you to bring in that funding for the next stage.
Thank you. And I believe Andrew has a question. If you would like to introduce yourself. And
Sure. I'm Andy Crofton. I'm on the faculty in the Department of Anatomy here at Case. Also been the founder of a startup biotech company myself. But I'm just curious, looking at your background, obviously you have your PhD in a scientific field at Case, and then it seems like you've made a pretty seamless transition into the more business side of science, so to speak. And I'm curious what you found has really helped you to make that transition, as seamlessly as you have, and sort of what recommendations you have for other scientists that are interested in the business side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice to meet you, Andy. A couple things with that. One, I do think for me personally, having that time in consulting was a critical bridge. It gave me a chance to let go a little bit of the deep focus on the science and to really open up my learning to new areas. So that time, I think, getting in contact, working directly with clients who were commercial leaders, who were clinical development leaders, who knew the different parts of the industry and their functions with the industry, really filled in the picture for me of how you take a product from conception through commercialization. And I think within that journey, it's kind of incremental steps, starting out on more scientific projects, getting that next opportunity that really opens you up to doing a commercial forecast and having somebody who can guide you through that, stepping from the consulting and research side into a market research and competitive intelligence role, forging that close relationship with the marketing directors who were the internal clients that I had there, learning from them and proving that I could be someone to take a chance on, and that I could put that work in and could learn that next phase. But on top of all that, I think, Andy, one of the challenges for me was actually letting go of science to an extent. And there's, I think for me as a scientist, and probably for a lot of scientists and innovators, there is a very addictive inclination to keep tinkering, to keep building the better mousetrap, to try and make this thing perfect before I take it through. And there is a tension, there's a balance between perfection and speed when it comes to moving products through development into commercialization. Not to say that you don't want to bring the best product forward that you can, but there's a time aspect to it that I don't think I appreciated when I was in the lab, that there are patients who are waiting, who are dying every day, and every day longer that it takes us to bring that innovation to them is a day that we could not be helping extend their lives, make their lives better. And that letting go at times of what we could do that bit better, and just saying this is good enough, and having the confidence from the data, from research that we might do, from discussions with experts in the field, to say this is good enough to take it forward. We can always have a next generation version that we're developing in the background, and a next horizon that we're focused on. But being able to cut that cord and say, this is the thing that we're going to take forward at this point. It was something that I think I had to learn. And I really had to learn from people on the commercial side of the business who viewed things very practically about what will make an impact, what will be a commercial success, and the risks of not taking that step with what could be that little bit better, and the risks if we wait too long to bring something forward for patients or for customers.
I can just a quick follow-up question. You'd mentioned your jump into consulting. What was your strategy when you first were trying to get your foot in the door, so to speak, in the consulting world?
I'll be a bit honest. I mean, with that, I felt personally like a bit of a black sheep. I was never going to fit in a traditional case study interview, Big Four consulting world, and maybe that's second guessing myself, and I shouldn't have done that. But I think what I was really looking out for was something that I felt aligned with my skills, with my spirit. So trying to find a firm that was really focused on healthcare, on pharmaceutical, biotech, and devices, a firm that was maybe earlier in its growth, that had more flexibility, was more open to the types of people they brought in, who really valued scientific expertise in the associates or the consultants that they were hiring, and where there would be an opportunity for personal growth there that's not on a typical linear path in a more established consultancy. So there I did read some books. I did try to work myself through some case study interviews. But at the end, I think what helped me the most was actually trying to understand the types of problems that the consultancy was going to solve, and working to better wrap my head around what the questions you need to ask yourself are in that field. And being able to come into an interview asking the right questions, maybe not having all the data to be able to say the right answer at that point, but taking that first step in a focused way, not just broadly for I want to be a consultant, but I want to solve drug development and commercialization problems. I think that was my strategy.
Yeah, I think I would like to ask one last question, if that's all right.
Sure.
So obviously all this experience in the academic world and knowing the science behind what you're doing at the biotechnology company is important. But also, how do you think, maybe the skills that you developed on the academic side of biotechnology helped you, do better in management of a biotechnology company?
Sure.
Obviously, it helps you with planning things and, making, good decisions, but also maybe I think you talked about, being able to ask the right questions or being able to, know what needs to be done.
Yeah, from the science and the technical standpoint. So I think for me, I mean, the scientific background is especially important in high science, cutting edge fields. So we're working right now at Chimeric Therapeutics in the cell and gene therapy space. It's so new, it's evolving monthly, if not weekly, and as compared to maybe a more established pharmaceutical development path, where you have a small molecule, you can't really predict how it's going to work. You generate some data, you create the data package, you follow the typical experiments. Here, I think there's so much room for innovation, and there's so much white space at this point that being able to understand the science has been critical for me. The chief business officer role is really a hybrid of business development and licensing, corporate development, corporate strategy, and early commercial strategy. So there, being able to source the types of innovation, the technology that we want to take forward, that we want to develop into products, being able to get down to the bottom of that science, to poke the holes in it, to ask the right questions, to ask for additional data that might support a claim that a partner is making about a product or a piece of technology, has been huge. And I know one personal story, a couple months ago, a recruiter approached me about a similar role at another company. And of course I said, no, not me. I'm happy where I am right now, but have you thought of so-and-so? And they came back and said, yeah, we're aware of that person. We've thought about them, but the CEO, the board really want a person who can understand the science. And so-and-so has a great background in the business side, but doesn't have that. We need someone who can really assess, source, search out, and bring in new assets without a whole team of scientists that they need to borrow away from their research to be able to help with those assessments. And of course, we need to go and be able to go beyond anything I know, bring in people who know even more in those areas, external experts, but being able to speak that same language and being able to get to the bottom of the science, I think has been critical for me, at least from a success standpoint in this role. And I know was also a major consideration in bringing me on here. And can't help but plug one of those pieces of technology that we've been really excited about is actually coming from CASE, from Dr. David Wald's lab, an NK cell production technology. So having the background in immunology that started at CASE and grew over time, and having the understanding of the differences between different approaches to solving the same problem, I think really helped us focus in quickly on the applications, the novelty, the exciting nature of what he was developing and what's moving forward in the clinic right now, and having the conviction and the confidence to say this is the right decision for us at this point.
Thank you so much for your time. I'm gonna send it back over to Mr. Goldberg. And yeah.
Great, Ashley, great job moderating. We're so happy to have you in our fellowship and getting to know you better. And it's fun to see our students take over the moderation task. It's we're creating the next, talk show host or professor or whatever you want to do with your life, Ashley, down the path, or biotech executive. Eliot, thanks for reconnecting. It was wonderful to hear about what you're doing, some of the connectivity you continue to have to the university. We look forward to finding ways to continue to leverage your experience and interest and willingness to help our students and our faculty and others. So it's really wonderful to have time with you today. And really, again, I think looking forward to doing more with you and getting you back on campus to Cleveland soon.
Thanks, Michael. I really appreciate the invitation. Ashley, it's been awesome getting to know you. And Michael, having some of these reconnections in so many different ways with the university. It's fun, but it's also exciting to see even how much further the academics, the entrepreneurship program, the fellowship program have been progressing. And yeah, looking forward to staying in touch and working together.
Awesome. Great. We have another event next Wednesday. Candace Marchant, who's a pathologist turned cheese entrepreneur, will be with us at noon next Wednesday for a really interesting discussion. So I hope you all can join. And again, thank you all for taking the time today and look forward to seeing you soon.